The United States Navy is one of the most powerful military organizations ever built. It is the maritime service branch of the United States Armed Forces, and its role is much larger than simply operating ships. The Navy protects sea lanes, projects military power across oceans, supports allies, deters rivals, and gives the United States the ability to respond quickly to crises far from home. As of recent figures, it operates about 290 deployable combat vessels, making it the world's second-largest navy by number of combat vessels. But by displacement, meaning the total weight and size of its fleet, it is by far the largest. That difference matters because the U.S. Navy is built around large, complex, ocean-going platforms, aircraft carriers, nuclear submarines, cruisers, destroyers, amphibious ships, and support vessels designed for sustained global operations. The Navy's place in American government is rooted in the Constitution, which gives Congress the power to provide and maintain a navy. That wording is important. Armies could be raised for temporary emergencies, but a navy had to be maintained continuously because ships take years to build, crews take years to train, and maritime threats can emerge far from American shores. Today, the Navy is part of the Department of Defense and one of the 6 armed forces of the United States. It is also one of the country's 8 uniformed services. In practical terms, this means the Navy is both a military force and a long-term national institution, funded, organized, and equipped to operate wherever American interests reach across the world's oceans. The Navy's story begins with the Continental Navy during the American Revolutionary War. The young United States did not have the resources to match the British Royal Navy directly, but it still needed ships to disrupt British supply lines, carry diplomats, and challenge enemy commerce. After independence, the early American Navy was largely dismantled, reflecting a nation wary of large standing military forces. But maritime danger quickly returned. Attacks on American merchant shipping, especially in the Mediterranean, showed that trade required protection. The Naval Act of 1794 authorized the construction of 6 heavy frigates, which became the first ships of the permanent U.S. Navy. These vessels were not just symbols, they were a practical response to piracy, coercion, and the reality that a trading nation needed naval power. During the 19th century, the Navy grew through conflict and technological change. In the American Civil War, it played a decisive role by blockading the Confederacy, cutting off trade, weapons, and supplies. This blockade was not glamorous, but it was strategically crushing. The Navy also fought for control of rivers, especially in the Mississippi River system, where naval forces helped split the Confederacy and support Union armies inland. The Civil War also pushed innovation, including ironclad warships and new forms of naval warfare. The lesson was clear: whoever controlled the water could shape events on land. From that point forward, American leaders increasingly understood naval power as a tool not only for defense, but for national strategy. The United States Navy became a truly global force in the 20th century, especially during World War II. In the Atlantic, it helped fight the German U-boat campaign, protecting convoys that carried troops, food, fuel, and weapons to Europe. In the Pacific, the Navy was central to defeating Imperial Japan. Battles like Midway demonstrated the rise of naval aviation, where aircraft carriers replaced battleships as the dominant weapons of sea power. Island-hopping campaigns depended on carriers, submarines, amphibious ships, logistics vessels, and naval gunfire support. By the end of the war, the United States had surpassed the Royal Navy as the world's largest naval power. This shift marked a major turning point. Global maritime leadership had moved from Britain to the United States. After World War II, the Navy entered the Cold War as a central player in the rivalry with the Soviet Union. The Soviet Navy challenged American dominance, especially with submarines designed to threaten carriers and disrupt Atlantic supply routes. In response, the U.S. Navy invested heavily in anti-submarine warfare, nuclear-powered submarines, carrier strike groups, and global basing. One of its most important Cold War missions became nuclear deterrence. Ballistic missile submarines could hide beneath the oceans for long periods, carrying nuclear missiles as part of America's second strike capability. This meant that even if the United States were attacked, its submarines could survive and retaliate. The hidden nature of these submarines made them one of the most stabilizing and feared elements of the nuclear age. The Navy's modern identity is built around the idea of a blue water navy. A blue water navy can operate across the open oceans, far from home ports, for extended periods. This requires much more than combat ships. It requires logistics, repair ships, aircraft, bases, communications networks, trained crews, and the ability to coordinate operations across thousands of miles. The United States Navy regularly deploys forces to regions such as the Western Pacific, the Mediterranean, and the Indian Ocean. These deployments allow it to reassure allies, monitor rivals, protect shipping routes, and respond to emergencies. Whether the issue is a regional war, a humanitarian disaster, or a threat to maritime trade, the Navy gives American policymakers a mobile military option that does not always require nearby land bases. At the center of American naval power is the aircraft carrier. The United States operates the world's largest aircraft carrier fleet, with 11 carriers in service, along with new carriers being tested, built, or planned. A carrier is essentially a mobile airbase. It can move into international waters near a crisis zone and launch aircraft without needing permission to use a foreign runway. This gives the United States enormous flexibility. Carrier strike groups usually include escorts such as destroyers and cruisers, submarines, and supply ships. Together, they protect the carrier while expanding its reach. The carrier's value is not only in its size, but in its ability to combine sea control, air power, surveillance, deterrence, and political signaling in one visible package. Submarines are the Navy's quieter but equally important instruments of power. The United States operates a large submarine force, including nuclear-powered attack submarines and ballistic missile submarines. Nuclear propulsion allows submarines to remain submerged for long periods and travel great distances without refueling in the normal sense. Attack submarines can track enemy ships, gather intelligence, launch missiles, and protect carrier strike groups. Ballistic missile submarines carry nuclear weapons as part of the United States nuclear deterrent. Ohio-class submarines are especially significant because they are assigned a large portion of America's nuclear warheads. Their mission is not to be seen, but to remain hidden, survivable, and ready. In naval strategy, invisibility can be as powerful as presence. The Navy also operates the world's largest naval aviation force, with thousands of aircraft. These include strike fighters like the F divided by a -18E and F divided by a -18F Super Hornet, helicopters such as the MH-60 Seahawk, patrol aircraft, electronic warfare aircraft, and support platforms. Naval aviation expands what ships can see, hit, and defend against. Helicopters hunt submarines, move supplies, and perform search and rescue. Fighter aircraft can strike targets, defend the fleet, and enforce air control. Patrol aircraft cover vast ocean areas that ships alone could not monitor efficiently. This combination of ships and aircraft is what makes the Navy more than a fleet of vessels. It is an integrated combat system spread across the sea, under the sea, in the air, and in space-linked communications networks. Organizationally, the Navy sits within the Department of the Navy, alongside the United States Marine Corps. The two services are separate but closely connected. The Navy provides sea control, transport, aviation support, and logistics, while the Marine Corps specializes in expeditionary operations from the sea. Civilian leadership comes from the Secretary of the Navy, while the Chief of Naval Operations is the most senior uniformed Navy officer serving within the department. This structure reflects American civil-military control. Elected and appointed civilian leaders set policy, while uniformed officers advise and execute military operations. The Navy also depends on a massive human foundation, with hundreds of thousands of active duty personnel and more in the ready reserve. Ships may dominate the imagery, but sailors are the system's core. The United States Navy's importance comes from the geography of power. Oceans connect the global economy, and most international trade moves by sea. A country able to defend shipping routes, sustain forces overseas, and operate near distant coastlines has influence far beyond its borders. From the Barbary Wars to the Civil War, from World War II to the Cold War, and from the Gulf War to modern deployments, the Navy has repeatedly served as a tool of American strategy. Its size, nuclear-powered fleet, carrier force, submarines, and aviation arm give it unmatched reach. But its central purpose remains consistent: to control access to the sea, deter threats, support national policy, and make American power mobile across the planet's oceans. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.